Case File 002, Jack the Ripper. London, 1888. The British Empire stood at the height of its power. Industry boomed. Wealth flowed through the city. London was the largest, richest city in the world. But not all of it shared in that prosperity. In the East End, beyond the grand streets and gaslit theatres, lay Whitechapel, a district of overcrowded lodging houses, factories, and narrow alleys thick with poverty. Thousands lived hand to mouth. Entire families shared single rooms. Work was uncertain. Hunger was common. And when work ran out, many turned to the only thing left to sell: the night. Gas lamps cast weak pools of light across the streets, leaving long stretches of darkness between them. In those shadows, people disappeared easily. Violence was not unusual here, but in the late summer of 1888, something changed. At first, it was just another murder in a city used to brutality. But this one felt different, and soon London would learn a name it would never forget: Jack the Ripper. In the early hours of August 31st, 1888, a carman walking to work discovered a body lying in Bucks Row. The woman was Ann Nichols, known to all as Polly. She was 43 years old, a mother of 5, once living a relatively stable life. Her marriage had broken down and years of poverty and alcohol had pulled her into the streets of Whitechapel. In the hours before her death, Nichols had been seen trying to earn enough money for a bed in a lodging house. She reportedly told a friend she would soon have the money. She never made it back. Her throat had been cut, her body mutilated. Police initially believed it to be the work of a violent attacker. Tragic, but not unusual for the area. There was no reason yet to believe this was the beginning of something larger. But just over a week later, it happened again. On September 8th, Andy Chapman was found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. Chapman was 40 years old, sick, undernourished, and surviving day to day. Like Nichols, she had fallen into poverty after illness and separation from her husband. This murder was different, more deliberate, more precise. The injuries suggested the killer had taken time, that he had not simply attacked and fled. For the first time, police began to consider a frightening possibility: these murders might be connected. Newspapers seized on the story. Headlines grew larger, rumours spread faster than facts. Whitechapel began to feel afraid. The night of September 30th changed everything. Shortly after midnight, Elizabeth Stride was discovered in Dutfield's yard. Her throat had been cut, but the mutilations seen in previous murders were absent. Some investigators believe the killer had been interrupted, that something, or someone, had forced him to flee before finishing what he'd started. Less than an hour later, less than a mile away, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square. This time, the attack was savage. The injuries were extensive, frenzied, escalated. If the killer had been disturbed earlier that night, it appeared he had quickly found another victim. The newspapers named it the double event. Panic spread through London. Citizens formed vigilante patrols. Police presence increased. Letters began arriving at the newspapers and police stations, many claiming to be written by the killer himself. One letter signed with a name that would endure forever: Jack the Ripper. Near the scene, a piece of graffiti was discovered. Police feared it could incite violence against Jewish residents in an already tense community. The message was erased before daylight. Even then, the investigation was being shaped as much by fear as by evidence. The final victim would be the most haunting. Mary Jane Kelly was younger than the others, believed to be around 25. She was described as friendly, outgoing, someone who still spoke of leaving Whitechapel behind. On November 9th, 1888, her landlord sent someone to collect overdue rent. What they found inside her small room at Miller's Court shocked even experienced officers. Unlike the previous murders, this one occurred indoors. The killer had privacy, time. What followed was the most brutal crime of them all. The extent of the injuries suggested a level of violence beyond anything seen before. After Mary Jane Kelly, the murders stopped. Whether the killer died, was imprisoned, left the area, or simply chose to stop, no one knows. The trail went cold. The case fell largely to Inspector Frederick Abberline, a plainclothes detective familiar with Whitechapel and its people. Abberline worked relentlessly, chasing hundreds of leads, most of them false. The investigation struggled under intense media scrutiny. Newspapers printed rumours as fact. Public pressure mounted. Above Abberline stood Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Charles Warren, whose leadership came under heavy criticism as the killer continued to evade capture. Dr. Thomas Bond, a police surgeon, attempted something unprecedented, a psychological assessment of the murderer. He described a man acting alone, physically capable, possibly possessing anatomical knowledge, driven by sudden violent impulses. It's one of the earliest criminal profiles in history. But even as modern investigative ideas began to form, the police remained one step behind. Jack the Ripper vanished into history. In the years that followed, dozens of names were proposed. Montague John Druitt, a barrister whose body was later found in the Thames, some believed his suicide marked the end of the killings. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant suffering from severe mental illness, later referenced in police memoranda. Modern DNA claims linked him to remain disputed. George Chapman, a serial poisoner convicted years later. Some investigators believed his violence may have evolved over time. And then came the more sensational theories: royal conspiracies, secret societies, elaborate cover-ups. Each theory filled gaps left by missing evidence, but none proved conclusive. And the uncertainty allowed the legend to grow. In 1992, more than a century after the murders, the mystery reignited. A book titled The Diary of Jack the Ripper, The Chilling Confessions of James Maybrick, presented by author Shirley Harrison, claimed to contain the personal diary of Liverpool cotton merchant James Maybrick. Within its pages was a confession. The diary described the murders in disturbing detail, written in a voice that seemed personal, obsessive, intimate. For some, it was the answer the case had been waiting for. But almost immediately, doubts emerged. The diary's origins were unclear, the chain of ownership uncertain, handwriting analysis failed to reach agreement. Ink testing suggested inconsistencies. Many experts concluded the diary was likely a modern hoax. And yet it endured. Because even if false, the diary did something powerful. It gave the Ripper a personality, a motive, a human face. And once an unsolved mystery gains a face, it becomes harder to let go. More than 130 years later, Whitechapel has changed. The streets are brighter, the buildings different, the city has moved on. But the questions remain. Was Jack the Ripper a local man hiding in plain sight? A killer who stopped as suddenly as he began? Or someone the police came dangerously close to catching, but never quite identified? And if the Maybrick diary is nothing more than a forgery, why does it still convince so many people? The files remain open, the identity unknown. And somewhere between history and myth, Jack the Ripper still walks. The Whitechapel murders remain unresolved. If you like unsolved mysteries and conspiracy theories in short form, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.